Hey y'all, Matt here. Welcome back for another Bible study video. And today we're going to be talking about covenants and what a covenant is. A lot of times we read about covenants in the Bible and we're kind of robbed of the meaning because we don't understand the historical context completely of what an actual covenant is. But before we get into this video, please take a second, subscribe to the channel. Go ahead and like this video, and please, if you like them, share them with your friends so we can reach more people. But let's dive into this topic. What is a biblical covenant? And one thing we need to keep in mind when addressing the covenant topic is that the Bible, especially the Old Testament, is written in the ancient Near East time period, and it's a lot different than the time period we are in today. So a covenant is kind of like an agreement or a legal contract that we would have today, but in a way it's kind of taken more seriously. So if we sign a contract today, typically we sit down and like if you buy a house or buy a car or take out a loan, you sit down and a lot of times we don't even read them, but it's basically a legal contract where we pay off this amount of money. And if we don't pay the money back, either they kick us out of our house and take it back, or they repo our car and sell it off at auction, and those are the penalties. It hurts our credit. But a covenant in the ancient Near East was a lot different and would take it a lot more serious, and there was a lot to it. These covenants were made between two parties, and kind of like our modern contracts, it was a legal agreement. Usually they could be between either people of like a greater position and a lesser position, or they could be between two equals. And typically if it was between somebody that was more powerful and someone that was subservient to them, it would be a suzerain or vassal style treaty where one party is greater and one is lesser. But a lot of times what we see, especially with like the covenant made with God at Sinai with Moses, typically what we see is a old school Hittite model of a covenant. And this was a agreement format that the Hittites used, that God actually used when he made this agreement with Moses, and it consisted of 6 different parts. The first part would be a preamble. And typically what this did is it identified who the suzerain is, or the suzerain, who basically is the party with more power, or in a higher level of power. And of course, in this covenant at Sinai that God made with Moses, God was the higher power, and he's the one that basically laid out who he was. He told them who he was. He made it clear. Then we'd go into the prologue, and the prologue basically recounts the relationship between these two parties. In the Sinai covenant, God probably would say, stuff that he did in the past, like, I brought your people out of Israel or out of Egypt. I brought them out of slavery, and I brought them here to this point, and I've blessed you and I've taken care of you. And it identifies his relationship with the people that he's talking to. The third part typically covers covenant stipulations, or basically the things that they're agreeing on. What is actually being agreed upon in this covenant relationship? One of our most common covenant relationships obviously is a marriage. A marriage is a covenant under the eyes of God, and the covenant stipulations in a marriage obviously is that both parties want to be married. They're agreeing to be married. Number 4 is the provisions of periodic reading and safekeeping, and we see this throughout the scriptures too. God tells Moses, he tells Moses' successor Joshua, he tells them, constantly write this agreement out and read it before the people so that they keep it in mind, so that it's on their thought. Teach it to your children. It's supposed to be something that the people widely knew about God, that they were familiar with this covenant, and that they were familiar with what they agreed on, the blessings that would come from following it, and also the curses that would come from disobeying it. The 5th part of this covenant is the witnesses, who actually witnessed it. This is something that we often have in ours. A lot of times if you have to sign a contract, you'll have to have a notary, and that's a witness that basically witnessed the contract, that can go and say, yes, this contract actually happened. I saw it with my own 2 eyes. And then the final part is the blessings and the curses. And this is terminology we don't really use a lot, but blessings and curses is basically what good comes out of this if it's followed, and what bad comes out of it if it's disobeyed. If you look at Deuteronomy 28, this is where God basically lays out blessings and curses for Israel. He's very clear about it. He says, if you follow me, if you keep my commandments, if you put me first, if you love me, you love your people, you take care of your people, you're godly, you're holy, then I'll bless you. I'll keep you in the land that I've promised to keep you in, which is fertile, where you have food, you have crops, you have water, you have everything you need. But on the flip side, if you disobey me, if you turn your back from me, if you live unrighteous, unholy lives that are apart from me, then I'm going to pronounce this curse on you. And that curse in their case was exile. God would remove them from that land. He would allow their neighbors to come in basically and invade them, take them over and send them out as captives into the lands of their enemies to live in captivity. And so this is basically the format of an ancient covenant relationship. And while it's pretty similar to a contract or an agreement that we would make today, there's also a lot of differences. But as we read scripture, this is something that we need to keep in thought, especially in the Old Testament, because we constantly see God coming and making these covenants with his people, whether they're conditional, which basically means like both sides have to be met for the covenant to be kept, or unconditional. And God does a lot of unconditional covenant making with us. Despite our evil and our unholiness, God keeps his promises even when we don't. And that's a lot of the reason why Jesus had to be sent. He had to live the life that we couldn't live, and he went to the cross for us so that God could keep and would keep his covenant with us, to redeem us, to make us holy again, if we would just trust in Jesus and trust in his plan and to love him and follow him. But I hope this video has benefited you in some way. Once again, please subscribe to the channel, share this video with your friends, and until the next one, I'll see you. I love you. Blessings.